This is Daniel Berman reporting from the Hollywood Backlot. My special guest at this time is Winter Adams, entertainment and sports correspondent for Worldviews. Welcome, Winter. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. But where's your costume?
I'm sorry, Winter. I forgot my costume, but I wanted to dress as an attorney today.
Okay.
You know, the well-dressed, man that, with a sport coat, slack shoes, the whole bit.
Well, I went hockey because you told me it was a horror show, and Jason wears a hockey mask.
That's very true, very true. I didn't think of that. Maybe I should have came as Freddy Krueger. I think that would celebrate the Halloween holiday perfectly.
All right.
But now, actually, now you're more familiar with the modern day horror films.
Correct.
Saw, Halloween. But today's special program of the Hollywood Backlot, we're going to be talking about a mixture. Classics to the more of the modern day stuff.
Right.
Now tell me, have you seen anything recently as far as horror films or anything that...
to be honest, I haven't.
No?
I haven't seen anything in the near future. Normally
Right.
I see them with my brother when he's here, but he's away at college, and horror is not really my thing.
No.
But
Right. Have you always been a movie fan, or?
I have always loved movies.
Right.
I like more of the comedy. I like to laugh. If I'm gonna pay money to see a movie, I want to get a few laughs out of it.
Right.
But I guess a few screams and cries aren't bad here and there.
No, not bad at all. No, actually, we're going to be doing a top 10 list today. We're going to be doing from 10 to 1, from least scary to one of those films that, one of those horror films, I should say, that will pretty much make you break into a sweat. My first film starts at number 10, Fears of the Dark. This comes in 4 storylines. Now, they're individual stories, and all of them end up, as according to Halloween goes, ends up in some awful ending.
Blood and gore, right?
Blood and gore all through.
That's what horror movies are all about.
Now, this one is done in black and white. It was done by 7, probably, of the greatest graphic designers of all time, including Ken Burns. I don't remember all their names, but when I grabbed this on DVD for $10 from Best Buy, it's amazing. I didn't think, I never thought an animated gore flick could be animated and scare you half to death.
I wouldn't think that either. Cartoons are normally...
I was expecting something out of anime, Japanese anime.
Yep.
But this was purely scary. I mean, when you look at Japanese anime, it's always gore. That's what you're looking at. But this actually had stories. This had an actual script. But the big thing is that they all ended up in some way of terror. Now, there's one particular one which is my favorite, which is, again, I'm going to say again, there are 4 storylines here, very short ones. There's one with one guy, a British guy with all the classic British clothing, and he's walking around with 4 bloodhounds. Now, these bloodhounds are not exactly what you call house-friendly. These are big, massive, 200-pound bloodhounds, and each one of these 4 bloodhounds goes after a particular innocent victim.
Okay.
And what's so scary about this is that they don't hold back. They are terrifying.
Well, they're bloodhounds,
Right.
Is there any irony in that?
Yeah, that's
Blood.
true. Blood and bloodhounds, that goes right together. But I mean, I was expecting, like I said again, an anime film. But this really had a storyline to it. I mean, I never saw anything. I mean, yes, it makes number 10 on my list, but I wasn't expecting to get the scare like I did from Fears of the Dark. Now, in the past, Winter, I mean, when you go see a horror movie, what have you seen that really scared you, or what kind of movies that terrified you?
I mean, I'm the kind of person who jumps at the sound of a pin dropping. I mean, everything scares me.
Right.
But when people get cut up, I'm not really into blood and gore.
Right.
So I guess when you see somebody like in the Saw, someone gets their arm cut off, or even in the Scream movies, people jump out of nowhere and I scream. Right. So anything like that can definitely, even anime, I guess, would probably scare me a little bit.
Right. Now, did you ever see the Halloween films?
Yes.
Now, did you get to see all of them, or just the first one? Some people jump around, but I mean...
There's more than one?
Yeah, there is. Sally did say there's at least 9 of those.
Okay, well, I've seen at least one of them. I don't know which one. Yeah.
Now, what do you think of when it comes to everyday horror movies? I mean, we have the new Paranormal Activities 2.
Which I heard is terrifying.
Yes, it is. Mediocre reviews, but it is terrifying. I saw the original one a couple years ago.
Okay.
I liked it. It got mixed reviews. The second one didn't do as well as the first. Like always, the sequels never do as well. But I liked it. It was a good scare flick. I think the introduction to, I mean, they had it the first time, but having the remote cameras around the house.
I mean, yeah, I saw the preview for it with the baby in the baby's room, and then the person was standing in the doorway. Right. Scary, freaky babysitter-looking person. And I screamed, actually, during the preview. So, right. I mean, maybe I'm a scaredy cat. Right. Maybe I shouldn't have been a hockey player. I should have been a little cat for Halloween.
Now, there's one film that I want to talk about, just to go back in the past. It goes back to the early 1970s. It's called A Clockwork Orange. Stanley Kubrick. That has to be number 9 on my list of favorite horror films. I think it was utterly disturbing. I forget the lead actor in there. I should have had that in memory. But I think it's one of those terrifyingly gross, apocalyptic world films that it was bloodthirsty. I mean, you think those bloodhounds were bloodthirsty. Well, this is even more bloodthirsty. Stanley Kubrick, you will remember him from The Shining, going back to 1980. But I think this is just one of the great, I think, late 70s, early. I'm getting from the bleachers. I'm getting no.
The Peanut Gallery. They're not agreeing with Clockwork Orange. I wouldn't even think, if I just saw that in a store, I wouldn't even think it was a horror movie.
Really?
I mean, orange? Come on. How is orange? Orange isn't scary.
Oh, no, it's not.
It makes me thirsty.
But see, orange, again, represents Halloween.
Right.
Pumpkins.
Pumpkins.
You get that kind of effect.
So they should have called it Clockwork Pumpkin.
Now, that's a neat idea. I mean, I could go along with Pumpkinhead. I don't know if you remember that one from 1986 or something like that. That's another monster movie right there. Unfunny and disgusting.
All right, so far we have anime.
Right.
Clockwork Orange.
A Clockwork Orange. Halloween. Now, I know you probably haven't seen this. Was a small little independent film called, strange title, Switchblade Romance. Now, it was done in 2003 by Alexandra Haja. This is more of a horror/action film.
Okay.
It's a really sick and little twisted little film. It's a romp through the woods. It's people chasing after one another and killing each other. Decapitations. The whole 9 yards.
Sounds like a party.
It certainly is. I mean, they just forget the birthday cake. But it's terrifying. I've seen a lot of films that take place in the woods, but this was the scariest. I mean, it was really realistic. I saw The Backwoods, which was another disgustingly little independent horror film, but this was true to form. Mixed reviews, but true to form. But
your review for our viewers would be to definitely check it out?
Yes, at least 2.5 stars.
Okay.
At least. But Switchblade Romance is recommended.
Switchblade Romance. How could you go wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
Switchblades Romance.
Right, exactly. Now, are you familiar with David Cronenberg? Any of his films?
No.
No? All right.
Tell me a little bit.
Okay. In 1974, he did a film called Shivers. Now, Shivers, doesn't take it easy on you. I was afraid. I was a kid when I first saw it.
Okay.
But Shivers is a cut-up, I always, when you go into a swamp, and I'm not going to go anytime too soon, but those leeches?
Yes.
But these particular leeches are quite large. It begins the opening is a guy, a medical doctor, brings his, very sickly patient into his room, lays her down on the table, half dead, cuts her open right there to take these 50-pound leeches out of her body.
Oh my gosh.
How they got in there,
ooh,
Lord knows.
And that's how the movie starts.
That's how the movie starts. And it continues to downhill from there because everyone else seems to have a 50-pound leech in them too.
No big deal.
No big deal at all. Especially, I mean, that will give you a stomach ache, 50-pound stomach ache. But these really mess you up inside. These really take a turn for the worst. But these just have a special quality of getting into your head. They reverse your train of thought. What you start from being is being an innocent victim, an innocent guy. You never hurt anyone in your life. But then, if there's one of these leeches gets inside of you, then you get mean-spirited. You become one of many. You become one of them. It's a terrifying look on how these people try to avoid these things but can't. They show up everywhere. There's no back history to where they came from, or how they existed, or where they transpired from, or who even maybe was some kind of mad experiment gone wrong. But you can't escape from these things. They show up everywhere, even in bathtubs.
Aliens. That's how they got here.
That's right. They came from flying saucers.
Isn't that how everything is always explained in movies?
Yes. I mean,
if you don't know, it was the aliens.
Yes, you can always blame it on the aliens. You can blame it on aliens, you know, the movie, you know.
Or Predator. Does that count as a
Yes, it would,
horror movie?
You're right.
I've seen that one.
You have?
I have.
What did you think?
You know what? I liked it.
You liked it?
I did. I like movies with aliens.
You do?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Did you ever see one of the, what is it called, XJ2?
XJ2.
It wasn't I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. It's not a horror movie.
Okay.
But it's a monster movie.
Okay.
An innocent children's monster movie. I mean, what did you think of Predator or what else was there? Was there Cyclops or any of those, you know?
I mean, Predator, in this case, I kind of liked when there was violent parts in Predator. Right. I don't really like blood and gore, but I liked Predator. I liked that it had a little bit of a scientific background to it. So maybe movies that are like that. Any that you could suggest that are horror related that have any scientific?
Scientific. Well, this is not exactly my next. Number 6, to be exact, Rosemary's Baby. Roman Polanski, 1968. Mystery slash, what I call it, mystery slash devil worship. It's about an innocent couple that go into a brand new apartment, big, luxurious apartment. And they found out there's a history to this apartment building, a very dark history. And it's an occult. Behind some drawers, there's a closet. And beyond that closet, there's a wall. There's a small door that goes out into...
Narnia. No, I'm just kidding.
That's a great idea. I wish my closet went out to Narnia. My closet just goes to the closet, and that's about it. It goes to an attic, which I'm afraid to go into. But
all right, so they move in. Devil worship.
This woman's about to have a baby in a few months. 6 to 7 months, they're going to have a baby. First kid. And this cult wants to adopt or steal away her baby. They're not looking for members, but they're looking to kidnap this kid so they can be part of their devil worship and make him the son of, as they say, the son of Satan. It's one of those things. I loved Roman Polanski's work. I think he's a great horror director. He's done a lot of other stuff like Fears and Desire back in 2004, but I think he is one of the greatest of all time. I mean, I'm just going to ask, have you seen that? I don't know, it's horror stuff, but have you ever seen any of the Roman Polanski films?
I feel like I have.
Right.
Has he had legal trouble recently? Is this the same Roman Polanski?
He's had quite a bit of legal trouble.
Okay, then I have seen, I'm not sure of the titles, but I have seen some of his stuff.
Right.
I will admit I checked it out after I heard about all his legal troubles, just out of curiosity, you know. So. Well,
that's good. 3 years earlier, 1965, he did something called Propulsion, which is probably the quintessential, let's say, self-loathing to the extreme. It's this woman who not just breaks down, but deteriorates rapidly. She starts to hear things in her house. She starts to hear things everywhere she goes. She's always freaked out. And there's an interesting twist to this because there's one evening, she puts out a piece of meat on the table for herself to eat. But it's an interesting twist because the story goes along by, as the meat deteriorates, because she never eats it. As the meat deteriorates, it goes back. The camera goes back to her, and it shows her deterioration. What was started to be a very juicy piece of steak, ready to be eaten, but it shows a simultaneous deterioration between the meat and her. The worse the meat got, by day, the worse she got. And it leads to murder and all kinds of crazy things come out of that.
It sounds repulsive. So I think they titled it pretty well.
And it's right up Roman Polanski's alley. This is exactly what he specializes in. Roman Polanski, this is one of the reasons why he's one of the great horror/dramatic directors out there. Even though with all his legal troubles, he's still one of the greatest that I've ever seen. Did you ever see, this is number 4 now, The Last House on the Left?
I have not.
No.
I mean, I've driven by a few houses, which are the last on the left, but I've never actually seen.
I'm going to be so afraid of that last house on the left now. Whenever I go by the last house on the left,
just
I'm going to
wave,
freak out.
you know.
Yeah, just wave. There you go.
Tell me about it.
John Carpenter. Now, this is another disgusting film. Realism in serial rapists.
Fun.
Yes, and it starts off quintessential, quite innocent for a John Carpenter film. A bunch of guys and one woman are partying, and they're all having a good time. And the guys decide that there's an attractive woman. We're going to go out and have a celebration out in the woods. Well, the celebration, as you know, turns to terror very quickly and ends in another romp through the woods. The Last House on the Left is like every other John Carpenter film. It terrified me. I could not sleep. It must have been for like a week and a half.
Really?
Yes. And I'm a big horror fan. I love horror movies. But this petrified me, and this is one of the reasons why, folks, this is at number 4.
We haven't even made it to the scariest yet.
No, and this scared the terrifying.
And I'm already terrified. Last House on the Left.
The Last Time on the House, I definitely highly recommend. It's just, if you want to celebrate the Halloween holiday, definitely check The Last House on the Left by John Carpenter. Definitely recommended. Did you ever see 1973's The Exorcist?
I have.
You
Yay.
have.
I've seen number 3.
Now tell me, what'd you think?
I think that I spent most of it actually, so maybe I haven't seen it in theory. I spent most of it under the covers. It's scary.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
I think it's a really, other than you mentioned the Exorcism of Emily Rose,
yes,
just to make a comparison.
I saw that as well.
Now, just to tell you this, anything that has to do with exorcism before or after The Exorcist can never compare to the actual The Exorcist.
The actual.
I can see that about any original horror movie, but The Exorcist is something that can't be duplicated. Tell me what you think. Do you think The Exorcism of Emily Rose was just as scary as the original, or do you think it was? What do you think?
I think that the originals are always scarier and the best because obviously they're original. Mm-hmm. Things nowadays are played off of all the older movies. Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of older movies anyway, just because they don't have all the Hollywood backing and magic that they have now, and yet they still could scare the pants off anybody. Mm-hmm. And I would say definitely if I had to pick between the two, it would be The Exorcist, obviously, because who wouldn't want the original? Yeah,
that's true. Very true. Now, going back to 1968, George A. Romero, Night of the Living Dead. Black and white. I don't remember what it was, but it was shot on 8 or 16 millimeter film. Talk about a torment. Being a 1968 film, being in black and white, I remember being a kid and seeing that for the first time. And I was scared out of my mind.
How did you make it through your childhood? All you did was see scary movies.
I don't know. I'm more of an adult than I was 10 years ago because I saw all these times put hairs on my chest. I'm a man now. But anyway, yeah. But going back to the Night of the Living Dead. George J. Romero best known for his horror films, especially zombie flicks. I think if you want a good zombie movie, that is what to turn to. I've seen B-movie flicks that run the gamut, but nothing as scary or realistic or makes you want to hide underneath the covers or make you want to go hide in the closet or make you want to avoid the closet altogether because you think something's going to come out of the closet.
Right.
But I've never seen a black and white film that can scare you literally half to death, like Night of the Living Dead. I mean, that's why, folks, it's number 2, because it is terrifying.
So, but it's not the scariest. So,
No,
what did you pick for your number 1? If
For
I
my
could
number
do one in a hockey.
Now, talk about realism. Now, or the most realistic. Henry, A Portrait of a Serial Killer. Now, when I first saw this film, okay, fine, it's about another serial killer. All right, we've seen all the Gacy films, but this is a whole new take on another sick and twisted mind. I believe at the time, 1987, John McLaughlin really put together an interesting portrait of a serial killer. I don't know if you ever saw things like Driller Killer and all those things. Well, anyway, this is 87, but we're talking like 1970s. But it's an interesting portrait, and the most realistic portrait, because there's no special animation, there's no CGI effects. It's all, pull out the hatchet, and kill the man. Turn him into chicken soup. It's
Yum.
Yes, yum is right.
And that is why I am a vegetarian.
and Henry is actually one of the films that got me interested in horror to begin with.
Okay.
I was watching horror before, but that's what really got me interested. And back over a year ago, I put together this whole column on some of my favorite horror movies of all time, but I forgot to put Henry on there.
One of your favorites.
One of my favorites.
And you forgot.
And I forgot. Yes, I did.
Well, at least you're mentioning it now.
Yes, you're right, and right here on the Hollywood Backlot too. It's a bonus.
Perfect setting.
But I'm going to add an honorable mention in here just for a second.
Okay.
It's a Korean-Japanese film called Pulse. Pulse is it was done back in 2001 by, I can't pronounce his name, but the director's name. But this is the original. This is before The Grudge. This is before The Ring. This is a must-see because it starts very innocent. But as time goes on, it goes from a lively world to a dead world. It has to do with your phone line. And this ghost or this spirit has possession of your computer, of your phone, and can kill you in a matter of moments.
I feel like I've seen this.
Pulse?
You said 2001?
Yes.
Okay.
It's called Kero.
Okay.
In Korean terms. But it's interesting because it's like a lot of other those prom night films. It starts off very innocently, but then as time goes on, you can see things generating. You can see where it's going to go.
Right.
It just gets horrific. I have it at home on DVD. I can't stop watching it.
Pulse, guys. Check it out if you want to scare. Honorable mention on the Hollywood Backlot.
Absolutely. And that's a definite one that I would recommend.
Now, if our viewers only had time to watch one movie, one movie right now.
One movie right now?
What would be the scariest?
That's an interesting question.
The most horrific.
The most
blood and gore.
Oh my God. Okay. Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal, okay.
Now, it's, sadly to say, one of Stallone's kids did this film. I was expecting better, but, and it was actually banned in several countries.
Because of the cannibalism?
Because of the cannibalism. I didn't think you can actually go that far with cannibalism, but I guess you can.
Okay.
I don't know even how they even lived to to talk of the tale or to speak of the story. But it really showed the real people eating, well,
Real people.
Or the aftermath of being eaten, which is quite interesting.
It can't be that pleasant.
No, and for the first time ever on any horror film, I don't get scared that easily, but first time in any horror film, I actually walked out.
Really?
Yes.
Yet you would suggest it.
Yeah, I would
our
suggest
viewers.
it because if you want the most blood and gore and the most, well, not realism, because some of it was all, faked, but if you just want sheer terror, Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust. People eating people.
People eating people.
Not people eating candy. People eating people.
No, it's no field picnic, I tell you that.
So you should pick that up on Halloween if you want a few frights in between the trick-or-treaters.
Yes, it certainly will frighten you. If you had to suggest one, even if it's a film from the past, your favorite.
My favorite.
Either it's gore or, whatever you want. Pick one of your favorite horror films. What would you choose?
Top Gun. No. It has Tom Cruise. That's pretty scary.
That is pretty scary, yes. His mental condition. That's
right.
Scary.
I mean,
yes.
He's all over the place. There's people potentially dying in planes.
Right.
No. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to say this is probably kind of lame, but I would pick maybe Scream. Just because it's kind of relatable. Mm-hmm. More so, I'm not familiar with the older movies.
That's fine.
So I would say Scream because it came out when I was in middle school. Mm-hmm. And actually, I have to say I'm pretty excited because they're filming Scream 4 right now, which will come out. And it's all the older, the people that were in Scream 1. So that's exciting. But it scared me. Yes, I was younger. But it scared me because it was all situations that I could run into on a daily basis.
Right.
Where there's that crazy person with the Scream mask.
Right.
And it might not be that scary. It's kind of, looking back on it now, it's more of a comedy scary.
Oh, it is.
But if you're looking for a nice cult classic.
I guess Scream you can consider to be that.
For my generation, not to date you or anything, but for my generation, I would say a lot of people would probably agree with that, just to check out Scream. And I also, the Saw movies, although by the time we're on Saw, like 27 now.
Actually, I think we're on Saw 7.
So, yeah, it's getting a little ridiculous. But the first one was, I remember seeing it in the movie theater, and I was, hands clenched to the seats, just wondering who was going to get killed next.
I think I remember from Saw 2, where there was a scene where a guy was dumped into this, I don't know what you call this, big pan or something like that. And and this was this, sorry folks, not to give you a visual, not to make you lose your lunch, but there's this big battering pan or something like that. And these, pigs were sent into the pan with him. You can see where this is going. Okay, without getting, and you can already get a visual of what's going to happen here. He pretty much goes with the pigs. Well, anyway, but I remember seeing that, and I could never go back and watch that scene again. Never. I never saw it again after that.
There's 5 other Saw movies. Why would you need to go back and see that one?
Exactly. But this was one particular scene. None of them really scared me up until that point.
Right.
You can set me in front of the original one, and I probably won't even flinch an eye and an eyebrow. But that terrified me.
Now, to go a little off the Saw movies, I just remembered. Have you ever seen House of Wax?
Yes.
That one creeped me out, and I don't know why, but it was the whole concept of melting, and
that would scare you.
It was just, I don't know.
Well, there's a pretty good one and a terrible one.
Okay.
The terrible one is the newest one. Which
right, but there's an older one.
There is an older one, which I saw.
Which is what I saw.
Oh, you saw the older one?
Yes.
Okay, now what did you think of the older one, before I get to my comments?
I liked it. I mean, I'm not a huge horror movie buff, but
I
liked the whole concept, even though it terrified me because the whole melting and
Right.
it's creepy. Yes, it's creepy.
Right. It isn't good when Spangler gets wiped out with the little ghost thing in Ghostbusters.
Right.
It's not that kind of goo. It's a little different.
Yes, just a little bit. But I mean, I think it would be worth checking out.
Yeah.
I know it didn't make the list,
No.
but if we had to have a Winter Addams pick, I would say House of Wax, the old one, not the new one.
Now, the older one was what, 81? Or early 80s, late 70s?
I don't know.
That's okay.
It
Don't
was
worry
before
about
my time.
It's before your time? Okay, then that's fine. No
but
problem
I
at all.
haven't seen it.
Okay, but I loved the original one. But, when you start doing sequels with, what's her name?
Paris Hilton.
Yes. Then you get into trouble.
Yes. Anything with her is trouble.
Yes. She's done about 15, 20 films, and all of them are just...
Straight to DVD. No.
Straight to DVD. So did, what's her name? Not all of them went to straight to DVD, but they were close to it. Is what's her name? Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Oh yeah.
A lot of her stuff went to straight to DVD or otherwise.
Right.
But anyway, House of Wax, the original, definitely go see. But in similarity to the House of Wax, did you ever? Just as a question, did you ever see any of the Puppet Master films, or our good friend here, Pinhead?
I don't think I'd want to see him.
No. Did you see any of those films?
No, I haven't.
None of these made my list, folks. But another small recommendation: if you want to see a good little horror film. All done by puppets, by the way. See Puppet Master. There must be like 6 or 7 of them out there, probably straight to DVD. You probably can't find any of them because most of them are on VHS and not on DVD, so they never got transferred over to DVD. But if you want something to watch, pass some time on a rainy day, definitely see Puppet Master.
Puppet Master. Okay.
But now, just to get off the Saw and the Paranormal Activity, anything that you're looking forward to seeing on the Halloween holiday, or anything that you want to see?
Anything that I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, anything like say, for example, I asked you what you've seen or what your favorites are so far, but anything that you're looking forward to seeing, anything concerning horror or
concerning horror. I don't really look forward to seeing horror movies. I can't say that that's on the top of my list.
Right.
I just saw, actually, I don't know if you saw it. It was a big promotional thing, and there's Boston, New York, Chicago, a whole bunch of people dressed as zombies. For the new movie, I think it's called Zombieland.
Zombieland, okay. All right.
It was a great promotional, thing. They had 50 or 100 people in all these different cities across the country dressed as zombies crawling around Times Square and everything. And the movie looks pretty cool, just in the respect of, I liked the promotional aspect of it, so I might try and check that out.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I liked Zombieland. Zombieland was one of those comedic kind of a horror film, but none of them really, I never found any horror/comedies to be any good anyway. But Zombieland is the exception to the rule. Zombieland was true horror, but you had that touch of comedy to it. I loved it.
All right.
Highly recommended. Even Rotten Tomatoes gave it, a 90% or something like that. So definitely really highly recommended.
Now, I know this isn't really a horror or anything, but my Halloween favorite movie, favorite, Nightmare Before Christmas, Tim Burton.
Oh, Nightmare
Hands
Before
down. And I know it's not scary, but it puts me in the holiday spirit. And, going from Halloween to Christmas. Right. It's definitely a must-see top pick for me.
Okay. But for myself, I like Tim Burton, but his movies always seem to revolve around the same thing. The animation's always the same. It's always that wire clay animation. Or he'll use, he sometimes uses CGI effects. But his clay animation is always the same in every one. And I'm not saying it's boring, because they all have different storylines. Not boring by no means. They're very interesting and very visual. And I have to give him credit for that, but the stuff is the same thing. And even after, what was it called? The one with the pumpkin. I'll have to think
The
of
one
its
with
name
the
again.
pumpkin. Not Coraline.
No, not that. Well, anyway, I'll think of it in a minute. But it was the same kind of. It was the same. It was a different movie, but it seemed like the script was rewritten for that.
Right.
It was just interesting to see how one guy could feed off of the different script but same movie. How do you do that?
Well, if you're Tim Burton,
I guess you could
do
get away with
anything,
it.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
People go and see it whether it's the same movie or
right, exactly. But it's like with the Saw movies, you know,
right.
you get the same kind of gore, same director or maybe different director, but they're different outtakes. It's just interesting to me, you know. That's all because Tim Burton's a great filmmaker.
Right.
It's time to do something else.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough.
Now I know I got my 10 list here.
Yes.
But if you went into the DVD store and you're looking around for a movie, now I'm going to get off track here just for a second, but if you had to pick something you wanted to see on DVD, what would you choose? I mean, anything like, do you go see, I mean, do you go get a lot, I mean, do you rent a lot of DVDs?
Are we just, I mean, Halloween-wise or just in general?
Oh, just in general. I mean.
In general, what would I pick if I went? I like the classics, originals, Gone with the Wind, Casablanca.
Right.
I always go for the old school.
Old school.
Not that old, but
right.
I think sometimes nowadays Hollywood is just so CGI and just over the top. It's Hollywood, and I like to go back. I think what they did, The Burning and Gone with the Wind in one take.
Right.
I mean, how can you not love a movie like that?
But that also goes back to my older movies. I mean, you're not going to find filmmaking like that ever again in today's Hollywood. For whatever reason, they cannot seem, and even when I watch as a good example, when was the last time you saw a horror movie, I know this is far-fetched, I know it probably never will be done, be nominated for an Academy Award? Or, you know, I mean, it's just interesting to me because if I was a 60s kid and I had, you know, a certain, you know, I don't know, realm of power in Hollywood, you know, I would choose, you know, a Clockwork Orange or, you know, but these are you're not going to find, other than Clockwork Orange and the other 9 films that I mentioned, you're not going to find filmmaking like that again. I mean, it's I guess it was just a different world at the time, and you didn't have the CGI effects, but they made you feel something.
Right.
They were made to scare you, and I find current horror movies, other than The Fears of the Dark, which goes back for a couple of years ago, but there's no legitimate scare anymore.
Right.
I mean, you don't get the same kind of feeling of wanting to run out of the room like you wanted to after watching Propulsion.
Right.
You know, it's not the same thing anymore. You sit there and you go, and then watch the rest of the movie.
As with all originals have heart, you know, the way the filmmakers have put them together. Mm-hmm. So. Okay.
Well, listen, Winter, thank you so much for joining me on today's program.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope you're not going to attack me with that stick there.
I don't know. If you hadn't picked such great movies, I might have considered it, but your top 10 list seemed pretty good, so I think you're safe.
Well, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
This is the Hollywood Backlot. I'm Daniel Berman.
And I'm Winter Adams.
Thanks, everybody.